because it still hurts. It hurts just like it happened yesterday.
Alice Mae Sullivan was born on August 3, 1966. She grew up in Gallatin, Tennessee, went to Gallatin High, and later enrolled at Tennessee State University to major in business. By the summer of 1986, Alice was 20 and living in Nashville with her 3-year-old son, Darren, known as Cookie by loved ones, and her boyfriend at Town Terrace Apartments on 40th Avenue North, a couple miles from campus. She'd just started her sophomore year at TSU. Life was full: classes, a part-time job at Burger King, and being a young mom. She called her parents, Lily and James, every night, sometimes twice, and she'd tell them they'd never want for nothing once she finished school. The day before she vanished, Alice told her mother she wanted to move back to Gallatin and commute. No reason given, just, "I'm coming home." Thursday, August 28th, she stuck to the routine. Accounts differ. Some say she watched Cookie get on the preschool bus. Police later said she dropped him with a neighbor, but either way, she made it to her 8 a.m. class. After class, she swung by Hankal Hall, a women's dorm, to visit a friend. The friend left shortly after her own class, leaving Alice in the room. Alice mentioned possibly stopping by the library before her 1 p.m. class. She never made that 1 o'clock class. The last confirmed sighting puts her walking near the Gentry Center, right by Hankal Hall, sometime that afternoon. She didn't make the 2:30 pickup at the bus stop. A neighbor who knew her signed Cookie off the bus and kept him until the boyfriend came home. That night, no phone call to her parents, highly unlike her. Her dad kept calling. He'd even seen a TV blip saying an Alice Sullivan had won a trip and wondered if it was his daughter. The next morning, he finally reached the boyfriend, who said Alice never came home. Lily and James drove straight to Nashville and called police. And then, the letdown. Officers suggested she'd probably taken off for a few days and would turn back up. They let her family stay in the apartment while they waited, weeks, never processing it as a potential crime scene. Friends and family canvassed between TSU and Town Terrace, papered the area with flyers, and asked around. Nothing. No purse, no backpack, no wallet. It felt like she'd been plucked off campus in broad daylight. Metro acknowledged what her family knew immediately. Foul play was likely. 2 people have drawn attention for years. One is the boyfriend, who didn't report her missing and might have had a problem if she truly planned to move back home. The other is the Town Terrace maintenance man who'd befriended Alice. He was later convicted in an unrelated sexual assault and murder and remains a person of interest. There's another strange thread. In 1989, 3 years after Alice disappeared, 2 men tied to the same apartment complex were arrested for the robbery and murder of a Vanderbilt student. One of them was about Alice's age in '86 and ended up convicted of first-degree murder. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it matters. It's never been publicly connected to Alice's case. Town Terrace still stands, renamed the Dover, the same 1965 buildings, just renovated. For Alice's family, it's frozen in time. Alice was tiny, 5 foot 2 inches tall, about 90 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. That day she wore black jeans, a black and white top, and a black silk jacket. She'd been in Nashville less than a month. Lily remembers the nightly calls that suddenly stopped.
She said, "When I get me a good job," she said, "I'm gonna take care of you," just like that. Me and her was best friends and daughter and mother all round up in one.
She and James raised their grandson, Cookie. In 2014, Detective Kevin Aiken reviewed the file and admitted early mistakes and missing documentation. He said there are strong suspicions, but not enough evidence for an arrest. What they need is that one piece of proof, or the one person who finally talks. If you know anything about what happened to Alice on August 28, 1986, between Hankal Hall, the Gentry Center, and home, please reach out to Nashville Crime Stoppers at 615-742-CRIME, or you can make an anonymous tip at crimestoppersusa.org. Alice wanted to be the first in her family to graduate. She was doing everything right: school, work, being a mom, and then she was gone. Cynthia Marie Cindy Kilburn was born on September 20th, 1960, in Lawrence County, Tennessee. Friends knew her as steady, sweet, and independent. At 18, she married David Kilburn, and the two settled in their hometown of Lawrenceburg. By 19, she was putting in long hours at Long John Silver's and about to step into management, saving, planning, building a life. On the night of October 23, 1979, Cindy helped close the restaurant, then rode with coworker Alba Mahoney to deposit the day's receipts at the bank. Routine, the kind of small-town errand you don't think twice about. Around 11:30 p.m., they said goodnight and headed to their cars. It was the last confirmed sighting of Cindy. Back at home, David had dozed off watching a ball game. Sometime before 2 a.m., he woke, realized she wasn't home, and called police. Officers soon found her 1978 Dodge Aspen at the Little League baseball park, not far from Simpson Street. The keys were missing. The windows were left partway down despite rough weather. Her purse, something she always kept close, was still inside. None of it made sense. The search stretched on for more than 2 weeks. On the morning of November 10th, landowner John White went out to hunt quail near Weakley Creek Road. He'd recently bush-hogged that area and hadn't noticed anything unusual. As he walked a stretch along the water, something stopped him cold at the creek's edge. For a moment, he hoped it was a mannequin, maybe a cruel Halloween prank just 5 days after the holiday. Shaken, he fetched a neighbor who said he looked so scared that it was probably more than a prank. They would soon find out. They returned together and found a partially decomposed body, unidentifiable at first glance. The clothing Cindy had been wearing the night she disappeared. Her sweater was up over her face, her bra pulled up. Tracks and disturbed ground suggested she'd been dragged to that spot. Later comment from the district attorney's office indicated the killer had tried to conceal the body, consistent with the landowner's memory that nothing was visible in the days before when he was out working on that area of the property. An autopsy determined that Cindy suffered deep stab wounds to the heart and lungs. The blade penetrated more than 9 inches. Evidence indicated potential biological material was left behind. Specifics have been withheld publicly. Reporting was sparse on details. In 1980, the then district attorney told local media he intended to bring evidence before a Lawrence County grand jury and even referenced 2 individuals under consideration. Whether that presentation ever happened isn't clear in public records. Through the years, multiple accounts said investigators did not believe the killing was random and that they had solid leads, yet no indictment followed and no arrests were announced. Her case slipped off the front page, but it never left her family. Local journalist Burton Staggs continued to press for answers. A scrapbook he kept includes a letter from a congressman urging the TBI to meet with Cindy's family. According to Staggs, it wasn't until Brent Cooper took office as 22nd District Attorney that the family finally felt someone in authority would talk with them. Still, time moved on. Decades have passed. The files are older, but the questions aren't. If you have any information about the murder of Cindy Kilburn, call the Lawrence County District Attorney's Office at 931-766-1453.
It was terrible enough to go losing Shannon. Now I've lost Penny for good. And now going through this, being accused of murder of my daughter.
Dawn Shannon Hercutt was born May 22, 1969, in Sevierville, Tennessee. By 40, she hadn't married and didn't have children, but she'd built a life that was hers, a thriving cabin rental business, Antebellum's Realty, and nightly rentals, and a tight bond with her sister Penny. She was honest, strong-willed, dedicated to her business and her employees. And she was meticulous, windows up, seatbelt on, hair just so. She launched the company in the 90s and ran it with tenacity. Family called her fearless, employees called her strong-willed. Business was good. August 3, 2009, Shannon left work early with a bad headache and skipped an evening exercise class. Near 11:30 p.m., OnStar pinged 911. Deputies followed the signal to Walker Trail behind Dollywood. About 125 feet below, they found her black Cadillac Escalade. At first, it looked like a nighttime wreck on a dangerous road. But when they pulled her body out of the vehicle, they noticed an opening in the back of her head. They noted that the way she was lying in her car, there was no way she had sustained the injury in the crash. The SUV went to impound, and her body was sent to a funeral home. The next day, investigators reached her family. Penny was in Myrtle Beach with her daughter, their father Ted, and his wife. News hit hard, and Penny's instinct hit harder. In her gut, this wasn't an accident. On the return to Tennessee, tensions rose. Penny later described moments that unsettled her. Calls coming into her father's phone, a balcony photo she says he wanted for proof they'd been at the beach, and a will reading where he learned he'd been all but removed. The basics at the scene didn't fit the woman they knew. Those who knew Shannon knew that she didn't drive with her window down because of her hair, and she always buckled up. And the vehicle's behavior told its own story. No skid marks, airbags that didn't deploy, and data putting the speed at roughly 7 miles per hour when the impact was recorded. Days later, the autopsy confirmed it: blunt force trauma, manner of death, homicide. Detectives turned to her home. In the garage, they documented blood on the outside of the refrigerator and 2 broken bottles of alcohol, indications of a struggle. It was clear that Shannon was killed at home. The cliff scene was staged to mimic an accident. A baseball bat was among the items seized. With homicide established, the question became who and why. Investigators interviewed relatives, employees, and people in her circle. Shannon and her father had been estranged and in litigation over property. He denied involvement when questioned, but those close to him weren't buying it. Many believe he paid someone to kill her. However, he was never charged and died in 2017. Publicly, detectives have been precise. They don't believe the killer was a family member, a co-worker, or a random stranger. They believe it was someone who knew Shannon. They've also said they believe they know the motive and that saying it out loud would point directly to the person. Some evidence was resubmitted for testing in 2024, but it's unclear if anything came of it, and the case remains open. Here's what's solid: the fatal attack happened before the Escalade ever went over the edge. The scene was staged. The suspect knew her, and the motive matters. If you know anything about the events around August 3rd to 4th, 2009, please call the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-TBI-FIND. If you've carried a detail all these years, no matter how small, it could be the piece that finally moves this forward. Freddie Lewis Whittemore, or Buddy, was born on January 1st, 1932. By 73, he and his wife Dorothy were settled on Cherry Street in Stanton, Tennessee. Early Alzheimer's had started to show. He was still gentle, still trusting, and, as his family worried, a little too easy for the wrong person to take advantage of. Between 6 and 7:30 a.m. on June 19, 2005, Father's Day, Buddy left a note for Dorothy saying he was taking the dog, Baby Girl, for their morning walk. He stepped out with his cane, a small billfold, and 2 medicine bottles. Not long after, witnesses saw him standing along Charleston Road near Highway 179, about a mile from home. He wore a white short-sleeved button-down, black pants, socks with frayed tops, gray Velcro shoes, a black belt with a silver buckle, and a cap with ducks on it. On his wrist was an Elgin watch with a post office box key attached, and he had that cane. By late morning, Baby Girl came back to the porch alone. Buddy didn't. At first, people hoped he'd wandered farther than usual. Searches stretched into weeks and turned up nothing. Texas EquiSearch combed the area. Scent dogs followed his trail from Cherry Street to Charleston Road. Then handlers concluded he went mobile, likely got into a vehicle. Over the years, more searches came and went. No wallet, no watch, not a scrap of clothing, not a trace. As time passed, his family's belief sharpened. Buddy met with foul play. They heard versions of a story where he was picked up and robbed for the little cash he carried. In October 2024, a tipster gave a sworn statement. Buddy was struck, run over, and buried along the road where the dogs lost his scent. The tip named people. As locals began sharing what they knew, more names surfaced. Some of the young men allegedly bragged about how well they got rid of an old man. Those claims spurred real movement. The TBI and Haywood County authorities re-engaged, even bringing in excavators and a forensic specialist to probe a specific spot tied to the tip. That site was ruled out. He wasn't there. Since then, attention has shifted to the possibility that he was buried on private property. Supporters say cameras were placed near a suspected area to make sure potential remains couldn't be disturbed. The family's also been candid about their frustrations. They say the original investigation, nearly 20 years ago, was poorly handled and that case files were misplaced at one point. They described tensions with county agencies and what they view as conflicts of interest. On their public page, they've pointed to several individuals they consider persons of interest, men who were minors then. One of those men has publicly defended himself in comments on the Find Freddie Lewis Whittemore Facebook page. To date, law enforcement hasn't publicly named any specific person of interest in Buddy's disappearance. Authorities cleared Dorothy and their children of any involvement. In 2024, cadaver dogs alerted to possible human remains at a site 2.5 miles north of Buddy's home. However, no remains were ultimately recovered. What the family wants now is to simply bring him home. They want his remains, a grave with his name, a place where Dorothy, who died at 82, and their children can honor him. They keep pushing, keep searching, not letting the community forget about their father, grandfather, or great-grandfather. If you know anything, if you were near Charleston Road or Highway 179 that morning, if you picked up an older man with a cane and a duck print cap, if you heard something later and tucked it away, please speak up and contact the Haywood County Sheriff's Office at 731-772-6158. Even a small memory may be the piece that finally brings him home. Charles Dandraon Seaton Jr. was born on December 7, 1998, in Fort Worth, Texas, to Rachel Mayo and Charles Seaton. He grew up in Motion, Texas, Nevada, Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee. New schools, new friends, the same big heart. Family called him Junior. He was vibrant, loving, and outgoing, the kind of son who split his time evenly between the Seaton and Mayo sides and made everyone feel chosen. He loved to travel, flying back to Texas whenever he could, piling into his aunt's car for long road trips to see his dad, never missing a reunion if he could help it. He had a soft spot for his grandmother. He'd call and just sit on the line with her, like she was the one person who really understood him. In late December 2011, when he was 13, Junior's family settled in Kingsport, Tennessee. He enrolled in school and joined chorus to learn music and sing. At Dobbins Bennett High School, he made friends easily and left a mark on teachers and staff. After earning his diploma, he took classes at Northeast State Community College. He talked about becoming an architect. He was even making plans to move back to Texas to get that dream going, before his life was cut short. He and a local girl, Josi, had become friends not long before. Josephine Nicole Helmandollar was born on May 5, 2000, in Princeton, West Virginia, to Melissa Davis and Shadley Helmandollar. At 20, she was a cashier at Home Depot and lived in Churchill, Tennessee. She was fun and loving, and she stood out playing volleyball in high school. Neither Josi nor Junior had any ties to crime, which is part of what makes what happened next so hard to process. On December 8, 2020, just one day after his 22nd birthday, they went to eat at Taco Bell, then stopped by their friend Jonathan Smith's grandmother's house to play video games. Around 11:30 p.m., they stepped outside to charge her cell phone in her red Volkswagen Beetle in the driveway. Jonathan is black, and his girlfriend at the time was white. Meanwhile, outside his home, a cold-blooded killer likely drove by, saw a white female and a black male sitting in a car, and assumed it was Jonathan and his girlfriend. Someone walked up to the passenger side and fired 5 shots into the small car. A neighbor rushed them both toward a hospital. Josi was already gone. Junior held on for nearly 2 weeks and died 12 days later, 5 days before Christmas. Why it happened still hurts to ask. One working theory is misidentification, that the shooter was waiting for Jonathan and mistook Josi and Charles for him and his girlfriend. It was late, it was dark. It's still speculation, nothing confirmed, but it's the kind of guess people reach for when the truth is missing and the violence feels senseless. 4 weeks earlier, on November 15, 2020, Eduardo Eddie Oviedo Velasco was shot and killed. On April 28, 2021, Jonathan Smith was indicted in that separate case on counts including first-degree murder, felony murder, attempted first-degree murder, and aggravated burglary. People close to Josi and Junior don't believe either of them knew anything about that situation. To date, there's been no public confirmation tying that earlier homicide to what happened on Skyland Drive. What is known is this: neither Josi nor Junior had a record or a reason to be targeted. Police weighed whether it was a targeted shooting or 2 innocent people caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Leads still trickle in, but nothing has broken the case open. There are bright snapshots that don't fade. Josi's love for volleyball, helping the Grundy Golden Wave to a perfect season in 2017. Her habit of chasing the best spot to watch the sun drop behind the hills. The way laughter always seemed to find her first. Junior's snapshots live just as vividly: chorus rehearsals, late-night calls that ended with "I love you," flight confirmations back to Texas, and an architecture dream he was lining up step by step. It's still unsolved. 2 young lives ended steps from a friend's porch, and someone knows why. If you know anything, no matter how small, please contact the Kingsport Police Department at 423-434-9782. Even a fragment could be the piece that finally breaks this open.